Welcome to another episode of Exhuming the X-Files. On a Friday night here on Outpost Unknown, I am Matthew, he is Jeremy.
I am. I am as well.
And if you love the X-Files, hit that like and subscribe. Join us on our journey through all 11 seasons of this wonderful television program. Now, we are on episode 22 of season 3. Tonight, we're talking Quagmire, directed by Kim Manners and written by Kim Newton, with a significant uncredited script polish from the great Darren Morgan. All right, Jeremy, we're going to talk Quagmire. Did you have any recollections of this from your childhood?
Yeah, once the episode started, like, we used to be really, really heavily into, mysteries of the unknown, things of that nature going on in the world. But, like, there was never evidence of anything except for pictures of the Loch Ness Monster. So if I had any hope or real things in the world, like, from Aurora, they had the Harold Edgerton Center there. Harold Edgerton went with Jacques Cousteau up to Loch Ness and invented side-scan sonar in order to find the Loch Ness Monster. They didn't. They found some weird shit, but that kind of tie from where we lived, it always, like, the Loch Ness Monster was always big to me. And I remember this episode because that was such an awesome monster. And in my old age, it was a little bit different, but yeah, I definitely knew exactly what was going on when this episode started.
Yeah, now I have a kind of a funny story that links to a specific memory, a terrifying memory from when I was younger. So this aired on a Friday night on Fox, and I was actually in driver's ed in high school, and I think it was. I was with Ben Grells, and after school, we had to, I don't know what time, but we were at Aurora, and we had to drive to Kearney on the interstate. That was part of that driver's ed class during that time. Now, I have severe ADHD and I cannot focus on things very, very well at all. But one of the things that I remember is I think Ben drove to Kearney first on the interstate. And then I had to drive back from Kearney. And I was like super, super freaked out because I wanted to get back. At this time, people, there was no like DVRs, there wasn't anything like
No
that.
TiVo.
Yeah, so it's like you actually had to show up at the time the episode started, and if you did not show up, you just missed it, and they wouldn't replay this for months potentially. And so I was like panic driving from Kearney on the interstate all the way back. Well, again, I am super like unfocused. Like I bounce from thing to thing all the time, and I don't pay close attention to my surroundings. And I was driving on the interstate, and I started thinking about the X-Files tonight. Oh God, I can't wait to watch this episode. I wonder what it's going to be about. And I drove off the interstate. So
Jesus Christ.
I drifted off, and the dude who was in because I think Ben was in the back seat, and I heard him yell out at first, and then the dude who was, I guess, the teacher or whatever was there, grabbed the wheel and pulled me back onto the interstate, and I was like, oh God. What just happened? He's like, you just driving off the interstate. What are you doing? I was like, oh, I was thinking about something completely different. But by the time I got back to that shitty farmhouse I lived in outside of Aurora for the longest time, I pulled in at about, gosh, I think this was on at like 8 o'clock, 7 or 8 or something like that. I pulled in like 5 minutes before this episode were to start, but I was so like jazzed and freaked out with like adrenaline because I had almost like killed all of us in the car, that I was like, I don't know if it just burned this episode into my memory for whatever reason, but I remember everything about this episode and everything that led up to me getting there because I wanted to get home in time to watch this. I think he multiple times he's like, you're speeding. I was speeding on the interstate multiple times trying to get back here to watch this episode. So that's my my childhood memory of this. So
I remember one thing about this episode, and it was the following week when we were talking about it at school, and just how cold-blooded Brady was. Because all he said, or the only part of the story I remember was Brady saying, "Fuck that dog."
Poor Queequeg. Well, we're going to talk about Queequeg, Jeremy. Let's talk about the cold open prologue to this Quagmire.
All right, so it starts with the protagonist from Jacob's Ladder and a slightly older antagonist from the movie Storm of the Century, and they're complaining at each other about a declining frog population.
Yeah.
They actually use this one guy just overblown with this environmentalist scientist guy. He says a frog holocaust is currently happening and man is the executioner. Like he was very, very
Yeah.
passionate about these
Yeah.
frogs. But the guy just dismisses it.
Environmentalism was a big thing back in the 90s.
Sure.
It was a very big thing.
I mean, we watched Captain Planet. Who even talks about that fucking cartoon anymore?
It was an awesome cartoon.
Mm-hmm. And so, apparently, the guy he's talking to is like the local park ranger or something. In the beginning, I thought maybe it was just like some sort of CEO or something that was dumping shit into this lake, but no, it's like a guy in a badge, and he just doesn't care about anything this environmentalist scientist has to say about what's going on. He's like, this is just a natural order of
Yeah.
things. Goes
Have
back
you
to
ever
his
heard of
vehicle.
survival of the fittest?
Yeah.
It's a great
Yeah.
comeback for someone who's like, I don't care about these creatures.
And
Survival of the fittest.
then he goes back to his car, realizes his pager is no longer clipped on the little plastic clip to his belt. You kids
Explain
out
to the
there.
kids, Jeremy, what the pager is. Like, what's a pager, Jeremy?
A pager is a small box that used to sit on your hip in a little plastic clip, and it was tied into the phone service. And if people dialed a certain number, it would buzz you on this little thing. It would just start either making a loud alarm or it would just start buzzing. And oftentimes they had this little screen on them that would tell you a brief message, or if you were lucky, or if there were some of the cheaper models, it would just tell you that a phone number is trying to page you at the moment. People
You know?
carried them around because, they were less than half the price of cell phones, I believe, were at the time. And
Yeah.
so, if you were out in the wilds and somebody needed to get a hold of you, a pager was how it was done. He loses it. He goes beating the bushes back next to the water in order to find it. He sees it beeping. All the while, we see these eyes or something from the perspective of something that's in the water is creeping up on him, closer and closer to the edge of the water. The guy finds the beeper, starts clipping it on his belt. All of a sudden, we hear this really kind of gnarly snap sound as something grabs onto him, and he starts screaming as he gets drug into the water. And then, like, as his hand finally goes underneath the water, there's this close up of a frog, calling back to the argument that he was just having with the environmentalist that nature will turn his back on him. And then we get the title screen.
Yeah, and it's short and sweet. It's like 2 minutes long. I love that pull focus shot from the hand sinking into the water to in focus frog in the foreground. That was really cool. And then it jumps at the perfect time. This was an awesome opening. This is one of those things where it's like, okay, what is in this lake? We're going to get a monster episode. I love the subjective first-person point of view shot of the monster and everything like that. And that dude, when he gets attacked, he is thrashing around and screaming in horrible pain. And you're like, holy shit. I love this cold opening. How do you feel about it?
I was just super jacked. It's one of those cold openings that you just remember from your childhood, and I'm just sitting there stomping my feet on the floor going, Queequeg! Yeah! Like, that's what I was excited about.
It's good. Loved it.
So we pass the title screen. We get to Mulder and Scully. They're on a country road somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Virginia. And Queequeg is bouncing around in the back seat of the vehicle, and Mulder's pissed about it. He's like, did you have to bring that thing?
Yeah, I mean, I did not realize that Mulder was such an animal hater until that moment right there. Like, he doesn't even say Queequeg, he just says that thing. Later on in the episode, he's like, when Scully's totally torn up about what ultimately happens to Queequeg, he just kind of is like, yeah, sorry, Scully. Hey, by the way, look at the teeth in these photos. He does not give a shit about this little tiny Pomeranian at all.
I wrote in my notes that, that happened, but literally 10 minutes later, Scully is behind the wheel of a boat making jokes and laughing. Look at her face. It is not a face of mourning.
Yeah. Queequeg, by the way, first appeared in Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose. That was the dog that he kind of left for her.
and
So
for all it meant, why you know what? I don't even know, but I loved it. Anyway, uh they find that they're driving towards somewhere, some place with a lake in it, and they're passing all of these like billboards as they're going up that are hinting that there's a lake monster in this lake. Well, Scully's trying to figure out, what about these missing persons interest you so much? And then she finally catches on like sign number 3. It's like, Mulder, are we going up here to investigate a fucking lake monster?
so good. So Gillian Anderson is so good at this, and I was like, I was thinking like, oh, this is like wall drug for lake monsters. You're getting closer and closer. For those who don't know, wall drug is this kind of like, how would you describe it? It's like a store with everything up in kind of like the Black Hills area of South Dakota. But if you're going along the highway there towards it, it's just sign after sign after sign that's like free water at
Oh,
Wall Drug. Come see the mystery of
of
Wall Drug.
wall. But
Every like 100 yards, there's
you
another
gotta
sign for Wall Drug.
you gotta understand that there isn't anything going on in South Dakota at all. But Mount Rushmore is there.
Yeah.
And you have to convince people to spend time and spend money in there. And Mount Rushmore itself, while it's cool to go there, it's very brief. You kind of walk up, you see what's
Mhm.
going on. You don't get to there's no real hiking areas around there or anything. It's just you walk up to like a platform, you look at it, take a couple of pictures and leave. So the southern half of South Dakota is just one giant tourist trap. You have the
Yeah.
world's biggest ball of yarn. You have a place called the Cosmos, which was actually kind of cool.
It's cool. I like that place.
They have the I think it was called the Mount Rushmore Maze. It's this big wooden maze. We
Yeah.
went there because it was cheap as a kid, and our proximity to it. But you get to like the northern third of Nebraska and the southern half. Everywhere you go, there's always this billboards trying to get you to go to these various places. But the most common one, where the heck is Wall Drug?
Yeah.
It just asks that question. It starts just asking that question. Where the heck is Wall Drug? And as you get closer and closer, it starts telling you to go to this spot. I think we went, I want to say it was a drugstore, like a big drugstore that has
Yes.
existed since cowboy times in a town that didn't like die
Yep.
during cowboy times. And then they just added a bunch of crazy shit onto it. But it's still, just a glorified drugstore.
Yeah,
With,
it's got all kinds of like weird stuff. Like I've been there multiple times because I do love going to the Black Hills and the Badlands in that area. And one of my memories of a wall drug, my mom never lets me forget this, is they have these kind of like giant, weird kind of plastic creatures that you can get up on, and they have a giant jackalope that you can climb up on, whatever. And I climbed up on one and I started like riding it like I was a cowboy, and all these Japanese tourists came over and started taking photographs of me. And so I'm probably in some weird Japanese magazine as some sort of freaky
I
American
mean,
riding a
did you
jackalope.
Did you play it up for him at
Oh
least?
yeah,
Like,
of
all
course,
right, all
of
right,
course. I was
good,
going woohoo! Yeah, of course.
good on you, Matt. So, where the fuck were we? That's what wall
Big
drug.
Blue. Yeah, they found Big Blue on the sign.
So yeah, they're following these signs, and they end up at the equivalent of the wall drug for Big Blue. It's this. They're well, no, they don't go there first. They talk to the inventor or environmentalist scientist guy, and Mulder is asking him in a circular sort of way, "Do you believe that there's a lake monster here?" And the guy just starts chewing his ass
Yeah,
about. It's like, this is just the dumbest shit. There's no monsters. There's no ghosts. Our kids are losing their attention span. Shit that you and I are bitching about now in our old age.
yep.
And but how many? It's just folk tales. And he asks a great question: how many folk tales do you know that eat a Boy Scout leader and a biologist? So immediately after that, they end up over at the wall drug of Big Blue. It's a guy that is, by all appearance, wearing a Make America Great Again hat.
To show
And
us your bobbers.
yeah, show us your bobbers. He sits there talking about, like, he's just filling them full of shit. And when you go into these places that have legends about the local area, they're not going to break script. They're going to fill you full of shit so that you will
Oh
buy
yeah.
stuff within there. And he was he was no different. A perfect caricature of those types of people. But then, like, the local crazy that has been researching this apparently since the monster took one of his dad's cows in his youth, his entire life. Like, he just hangs around this lake and takes pictures and has never, ever seen the lake monster.
He's like, one of these days, man, I'm gonna catch a picture of it. It's gonna be today.
It was, well, sort of. It cuts to a fisherman. He's put, like, it was this weird, really good shot of him baiting a hook with a worm, hucking it in the water, and then he just immediately gets a bite, reels it in, and it's the bottom half of a human body, just the pants, legs down. And he runs it up, and apparently this wall drug is also the marina. And he's like, call the police, we got a floater. Now I have to put something in here. A body floats when you put a body in a body of water and you do not weigh it down. Its cavities inside, like its stomach, its lungs, it starts filling up with gases just
Right.
naturally produced by the decomposition process, and they will float to the surface. Those cavities don't exist in the legs.
That's true.
So anyway, um,
I love
they
Scully's explanation. Fish ate it, Mulder. Fish ate it.
yeah, the fish don't save the bottom half
Yeah.
for later.
I did write a note here when I was watching Gillian Anderson's facial reactions to like the Show Us Your Bobbers guy and stuff like that and the weirdo. I wrote in here when Ansel shows up and is like, one day I will snap a photo of the monster. Gillian Anderson's facial expressions to these people are absolutely hilarious. So keep an eye on that in the background. She just has the most dismissive, I cannot believe Mulder drugged me down to this wall drug lake monster thing. It's hilarious.
Oh, I wish I would have paid attention. I wasn't looking there. But she does immediately start fiddling with this dude's dick. Uh, they're both like standing on this dock because I don't even think they identify themselves to the dude as FBI. They just follow him down to the dock. She flips the body over. Like, thankfully she has gloves on, and notices that the fly is down. And that's immediately her ability to just write off this entire thing. It's like the guy was just taking a piss, and Mulder had like, well, sure, the fish ate the top half of him, but they don't normally save the bottom half.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like, this episode is just so funny to me. Probably because Darren Morgan did a script polish on it. Darren Morgan, of course, did Clyde Bruckman's Final Repos, War of the Copperphages, all these funny episodes. And I think this was technically the last episode up until like season 10 that he actually worked on in any major way.
So we cut from there to Make America Great Again guy. He's got this big pair of boots on that make it look like he's stomping down the feet prints of the big blue monster. And he's stomping around in the mud next to the lake. And we know it's him because we see his Show Us Your Bobbers hat. And then he gets grabbed by something. He yells, "Stop it! Stop it!" twice, and then gets dragged into the water.
I love when we come back and Mulder and Scully have sort of found his body. I did make a note here. Mulder again uses his finger to put in the blood. He sticks his finger in there and looks closely at his face. Again, take a shot.
trying to get that disability on HIV. So they're in the area I can't even remember why they were investigating that area. Because they didn't find a body part, did they?
Wasn't it Queequeg? Doesn't Scully have Queequeg there, and Queequeg runs off and finds the bloody feet at the boots at night? Yeah,
they're there. Before they see the tracks and the boot, they're there for some reason, and I don't know why.
I can't remember now. Yeah, but they are. Yeah, and then Queequeg goes running off.
Just sprinting off, and I'm like, oh man, is this the part? No. They find drag marks, then they find the boot, then they realize, like, the whole time Scully is like, none of these none of these monster feet prints are even deep enough for something that big.
Yeah.
And they find the fake hoax boots, but Mulder is still deep in it. Like, well, where's the hoaxer?
You know, something ate the hoaxer.
So we cut to this scene where we got the mid to late 90s frosted tips high school bro sitting there on the dock with an ogre of a red-haired girl sitting with
Oh
him.
no. Jeez.
Come on, man.
I
That
mean,
girl
I'm not
was
disagreeing with you, but I mean,
if you would have put a red-headed wig and left that kid's facial hair on him, he still would have been a hotter girl than that girl was. Ugh. But he's talking about licking, like how frogs get you high, and then he just licks this toad, and he's like, "Bleh." And then he starts like tripping balls. But then this snorkel diver just jumps out of the water right next to him. He drops the toad, starts cussing the guy. Apparently, they were hanging out with each other. Two kids sitting on a dock with a guy, snorkeling.
dude, you made me drop my toad.
I'll get you another one, bro. It's all good. And then the snorkeler gets attacked, Jaws style. Like he's out of the water, and he's doing that zoom thing where he's like a little bit out of the water, but he's being carried by something that you can't see underneath the surface. And then he gets pulled underneath the water, and the next thing that you see is just his head bobs up to the surface. And I thought it looked really good.
Did.
Because they were close. They weren't just somebody worked on that prosthetic.
Yeah.
So they cuts to the professional photo guy. Wait a minute. Did I skip a bunch of shit?
Yeah, because eventually, like, it goes to commercial break, and then they come back, and Mulder and Scully are there, and the sheriff is talking to the stoners. I wrote down, he says, "I got zip at a free bird and moon unit over there. No telling what they've been smoking." And so, yeah.
Scully just writes it off as the kid got his head cut off by a propeller because like there was no fucking boat, but okay,
Well, it's funny because she's like, "Look how busy the lake is, Mulder. It's not. There's no boats out there. Yeah. There's nobody on the lake when she says
they're filming. Like, of course not." But so then we jump from there to the professional photographer. No, wait.
No, the sheriff gets pulled in. The sheriff, because Mulder's like closed down the lake. He's doing the whole thing like in Jaws, like shut the lake down. And the local sheriff, he's like, "I got 4 deputies for 48 miles of stuff." He's like, "I'm not doing that." And then they're like trying to scrape the bottom, like he's throwing like a chain with a hook out there. And
no, this was later. This was after that.
Was it?
Yeah,
because I have on my notes here. I have sheriff gets pulled into the lake and something brushes up against him.
Yeah, that was the first. No, that was the second death of the day. And they have the professional photographer is sitting there snapping pictures, and he like turns it around and starts snapping pictures of Scully at point blank range. And he tells him like, "Fucking get lost, dude." And then that's when he goes across the bay. He puts a bunch of meat on top of an inner tube, and he's setting up camera equipment around it. And then like as he's like going to get a different piece of equipment, you see the inner tube that is covered in meat kind of bobs in the water a little bit.
Yeah.
But he gets, what it comes down to is he barely gets the lens cap off as he gets attacked by whatever comes out of the river or the water to get him. Then they go out there to see him. They find his camera equipment. They don't have it done yet. And he's still saying, "This is the third guy that's died today."
Okay.
He's like, "I don't know how to do it." And he starts hucking this anchor or whatever out into the water to drag the water to see if they can't find his body. And he gets yanked like 20 feet out in the fucking water so hard. Then he like swims in a panic up. He's like, "Something touched me in there. Call the National Guard." He's very passionate suddenly.
Yeah.
And so, all right, they're closing the lake. Fine. They develop the pictures. They're going through a bunch of photographs over at the professional photograph loser's place. They see nothing but the tooth. Like they just see this white triangle that's way out of focus. Like, "Hey, Scully, is that a tooth?" He's like, Mulder, that could be anything.
It could be anything, dude. And he's so passionate about looking through these photos. And then he's like, "Well, this guy's taken thousands of photos. There must be something here," and proceeds to literally start looking through every
Everything.
photograph this guy's ever taken. And Scully's just like, "Good night, Mulder. I'm gonna go take Queequeg
Yeah.
out."
Yeah. Queequeg needs to go potty. I'm like, oh, we're getting close. She goes out to let Queequeg go potty, and Queequeg just bolts out into the woods towards the shoreline, doing its little or barking Pomeranian thing, and then all of a sudden there's a yip, and then the auto reeling leash that she has starts slowly winding back in, and it's a bloody, chewed up collar that says Queequeg on it. Scully is just shocked.
Queequeg, Queequeg. It's so funny. I always kind of mention this to Alyssa because she had a Pomeranian that she loved to death, and so every time there's a Pomeranian on television or something, she feels an attachment to Pomeranians, and she remembers this episode. She's horrified by this sequence, but I think it's hilarious. So I'm a bad person though. So
You're not bad. You didn't like make her sit down and watch it with you. Like, hey, babe, come check this out real quick.
yeah.
Dead dog.
Well, I love how it goes to commercial, and then when it comes back from commercial, Scully looks completely devastated. Shell shock. And Mulder's still flipping through the photos. He's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry about Queequeg." He even makes fun of the name, like Queequeg. And then he immediately starts talking to her about Big Blue. Like, completely dismisses her feelings entirely.
He does it. Yeah, she's just completely numb. But he stands up and like, hey, you think you could drive a boat?
Yeah, can you drive a boat?
And then we cut to this scene where she's driving a boat and she's just normal again. No shell shock. She's just happy. She's got this big old grin. She makes a joke that I didn't write down, but it's just like it's an hour later.
Yeah.
And they're in the they're driving along this lake in the dark using a fucking fish finder in order to find the lake monster. But they do see something.
Yep.
They see something big, and it just starts beeping and beeping faster and beeping faster, and something just strikes the side of the boat and pokes a hole in the side of it. And they have this whole scene where the boat goes down. They just happen to be right next to boulders large enough that they could sit on. And they have one of my favorite scenes in the show, really, because once they get alone, like they start riffing and joking with each other, and it's like one of those things that like this is where Scully and Mulder for me work the best.
Yes.
When they're laughing and they're having a good time, and it's just them. It was nothing really happened important to drive the plot forward, but they're excellent together when they're allowed to be. And that particular part of just hanging out on the rock was an excellent example.
Yeah, and from what my research, Darren Morgan wrote this entire sequence, and I'll talk a little bit more about it in the fun facts portion of the episode. But I love how it starts, where you see the ship completely sinking, and then it's I don't know who says like, "Well, there goes our $500 deposit," and then like that whole conversation about between the two of them, you got that sort of those moments where like, what I really saw in those pictures sort of moment where Scully's trying to explain to Mulder, like he's so driven by finding something, anything. He's willing to believe even the dumbest shit, like a tooth. Like there's no tooth in those photos, dude. But there's like that whole sequence where you get the duck coming out of the fog and all of that.
Oh, that was so good.
Yeah.
It starts with right after the boat sinks. There's a bunch of splashing, like heavy splashing in the water around the edges of the rock. So they pull their guns out. They have a lantern they somehow salvaged from the boat, and then it stops. And then they have this really cute scene where they talk to each other for a little while. Then they hear this light splashing as a fog kind of rolls in on the water, and they do that little. They see a lake monster, but it's just a duck's head poked up above the fog, and it looks like that picture of Nessie.
Yes,
from
I wrote that
the
down.
Loch Ness Monster. Yeah. I was like, that is really clever.
Yeah,
and then
sure.
later on, or they have a little bit more time. Then there's a third time they hear splashing. It's like, okay, it's actually going to happen, but no, it's Dr. Faraday, and they're like, what are you guys
Yeah.
doing out here? Yeah, the shore is right over here. Dr. Faraday being the environmental scientist from
It's like
the earlier
20
films.
yards away. But there's that great moment though when they're talking and they're actually kind of worried. I don't remember where it was in the episode where I think it was Mulder. He was like, "Well, you forget when we live in the city, you forget how dark night actually is," and that is 100% true. You know, for people who listening to this who have only lived in a city before and you have nothing but light pollution, when you are out like even like on a farm or something at night is very very night. It's very very dark and
Hmm.
you can't see shit, and there's no way because Mulder's like, I'm going to swim to shore, and Scully's like, "Oh, which direction are you going to go?" Like you have no idea. They can't see anything. But I did want to mention I love the when it comes back from a commercial break during that sequence and Mulder's like, "Hey Scully, do you think you could ever cannibalize someone?"
Yeah,
Just like I started laughing. He's like,
and
"I
then
mean, if you really had to."
and then asks her if she's been losing weight, but not like as a
Yes.
compliment, like, I'm going to need to eat you for a little while. And she's clueless until she realizes that he's talking about
Yeah.
cannibalizing her.
It's so funny. I was just It was so good. It was so good.
But they
He,
get to shore. They ask why Faraday is out there, and he's just like, I'm fucking trying to breed these frogs in captivity because there used to be every time you'd look at a stem, there'd be all these goopy frog eggs on it. It was beauty, and now it's not. And so they just accept it. They let him go on, or he can't drive them in because he still has work to do or something like that. So he calls the sheriff. The sheriff shows up, and then they hear him yell, the scientist yell through the woods. They run out, and the fucking frog bag is just all bloody. And they find him. He's like, something just grabbed me, but it let me go because nature apparently didn't turn its back on him.
well, he's pro nature. Just a little
But
nibble.
Scully stays with the scientist. Mulder starts walking into the woods, starts hearing something stomping towards him, raging towards him. Just starts. He falls backward and just empties his mag into whatever it is, and it's an alligator.
It's an alligator. Super
Alligator.
disappointing. Like, oh, it's just now. You can see the disappointment on Mulder's face that it's just an alligator. Before he gets out there, though, I did make a couple notes here. That the like Mulder thinks the monster is in Striker's Cove due to food chain issues. So he figures out that the missing frogs are why the Big Blue is now. Or what he thinks Big Blue is out now attacking people because you take down one animal in the food chain and it affects everything else. But the sheriff won't allow. The sheriff's like, I'm searching this other part of the lake, and we're not going to send anybody here. And there was this nice moment I thought where Scully turns and convinces the sheriff to just have a couple people to help them search the cove, and she turns back to Mulder, and he has that like he says like thank you sort of thing, and I thought that was just a really nice moment between the two of them where she knows like how much it means to him that this monster is here and that she was able to get that info for him. But then the disappointment is real when he sees it's just an alligator.
Well, see, I saw that scene slightly differently because Mulder just tried to jump in that sheriff's like business and just say, "You need to get everybody you got over here because
Yeah.
this is the only thing that matters." And the sheriff's like, "No, I got a whole lake to close down." And she came in instead of bossing him around with kindness and just said, "Sheriff, can we please have just two people?" She was showing diplomacy, like tact.
I thought she was doing it for Mulder, and plus, it would to me it would make sense because I'd be like, dude, this Dr. Faraday was literally just attacked 5 minutes ago. The monster is here, sort of thing. I saw it as she was because the guy just refused to believe Mulder, and she was trying to like do a nice thing for Mulder because he says thank you to her afterwards.
He does, but that's only because she understands what tact and diplomacy
Okay,
is.
okay.
At least in my opinion. I did write down previously, right before Dr. Faraday gets attacked. Mulder is jumping to his huge conclusions about the food chain problem and then immediately having to jump from eating frogs to eating humans. And Dr. Faraday straight calls Mulder's jump to his conclusions as complete bullshit.
Yeah.
And I wrote, maybe for the first time in this show, that somebody other than Scully is just like, man, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, it's true.
And then they go to the edge of the lake. They're both Scully are standing there, and he's expressing his woe or whatever that it wasn't actually a lake monster.
I wrote the
Both
quote because I think the quote is great. When he's because Mulder looks really sad right there. He's watching the lake, and there it just turned out to be an alligator. And Scully comes up to him. She's trying to like, get his hopes back up or something. But he literally says, "I just wanted Big Blue to be real. I see hope in such a possibility." And I think that goes back to the moment or one of the lines when they're on that rock waiting, where he makes a joke, is Scully coming onto me? And Scully's like, "You're Ahab." Because he asked her, like, why did you name the dog Queequeg? That's we forgot to mention, like, when they're on that rock, he tries to sort of like make peace with her a little bit. Like, why'd you name Queequeg? And she goes into a whole sort of monologue about how her dad read Moby Dick to her and stuff. And she's like, but Mulder, you're Ahab. You're the person that's just going after the white whale constantly, and you're crazed and driven. And then Mulder's like, well, I've always wanted a peg leg.
that was
Sort
a
of thing.
great conversation.
Yeah, and he says the reason why he wanted a peg leg is because there'd be no expectations on him basically throughout life, and it would be much easier to go through life and stuff with when no one's kind of like God, I can't remember exactly how he described it, but it was just one of those.
Well,
It was
it was
really good.
because you have that disability, so people don't
Yeah,
expect you to excel in life because you're already dealing with overcoming that part of it.
right, right. And I just love how this line where he's like, "I see hope in such a possibility that there's a lake monster out there," and then they turn around and walk, and then what do we see as an audience?
If he had just stayed there 10 seconds longer, the lake monster, classic Nessie style pose, just straight comes out of the water, and then we end the episode.
Yeah. Which is such a great way to end the episode. Because I remember when I first saw it, I'm like, it's just an alligator. That's it. I was disappointed like Mulder. I was like, oh man. But I remember seeing that lake monster just kind of come up out of the water and go back down, and I was like, this episode's fucking great. What did you think of this episode, Jeremy?
Well, Queequeg died, so that's always a positive. Um, but it can only happen once is the problem, unless we get some voodoo involved. I can hope, but I'm pretty sure that never happened in the show.
Justice for Queequeg.
Um, I like that we don't really know if the alligator was the only thing eating humans.
Yes.
And
That's
again,
cool.
going back to the mysteries that I love back in, Bigfoot and the Loch Ness monster were the things I had the highest hopes on as far as being real,
Yeah.
because it was one of the few things that we had what seemed to be any real evidence for.
Hmm.
Though, as time has passed, I've learned some things about that Nessie picture that really bummed me out.
And the Bigfoot video too. Jeez.
But yeah, overall, excellent episode. Excellent Monster of the Week episode.
Yeah, I love this episode. I have such specific memories attached to watching this, and just the fact that it was an awesome episode. Just really, I mean, I love it. Will this end up in my top five? I don't know. This has been a banger of a season. I could tell you now. It's going to be very, very difficult to narrow down my top five favorite episodes of this season. But this has a real chance to get in there. But just fun facts about this episode. In reality, from IMDb and Wikipedia, in reality, Gillian Anderson was no fan of the little dog that played Queequeg due to its constant noxious flatulence. So Queequeg was just farting constantly, apparently, on set, and it did not make Gillian Anderson happy. In the toad licking scene, Tyler Labine and Nicole Parker, who Jeremy so described as the ogre, return as the stoner and the chick, respectively, after their appearance earlier in season 3 in War of the Copperphages. They will return one more time, 7 seasons and 20 years later, in Mulder and Scully Meet the Were Monster. They always appeared drugged. Quagmire was written by Kim Newton with substantial revisions courtesy of fellow writer Darren Morgan. As such, several references to previous Morgan penned episodes make an appearance in Quagmire. For instance, Scully's dog Queequeg, which first appeared in the episode Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, is killed in this episode. Then story editor Frank Spotnitz claimed the dog was brought back simply to kill it off. Stoner Kid and Hesitant Chick both first appeared in the episode War of the Copperphages. The episode also contained various series in-jokes and pop culture references. Milliken County, where the lake in the episode is located, derives its name from director Rick Milliken. The boat that Mulder and Scully ride on in this episode, the Patricia Ray, is named after the mother of director Kim Manners. And Mulder's discussion about having a wooden leg references the book Games People Play. The conversation scene was filmed on Rocky Island set at British Columbia Research Wave Tank. During the day of filming, the artificial rock set was placed in the tank and filled with water. However, the rock set began to float, and an emergency crew of carpenters worked furiously through the night to reattach the platform. For the final scene of Big Blue, the producers had originally intended for a boat to pull a rubber sea serpent through the water, but they were unhappy with how it turned out. After attempts to enhance it digitally failed, Big Blue was created entirely with CGI technology. Director Kim Manners said of the episode, "Not a great show, but a good one. It's a lighter show. There is a lot of humor in it, but I think it's a hit with fans because there is some wonderful Mulder and Scully relationship stuff. The entire third act is just two of them talking, which is actually kind of interesting," unquote. The scene where Mulder and Scully talk while stranded on a rock comprised 10 pages of dialogue. Gillian Anderson said of the scene, quote, "I love that. That was so much fun, and I think it was written really well. It was just neat to have us separated from everything and stuck on this island where we could wax philosophical and kind of tell the truth to each other in strange ways," unquote. So there you have it, Quagmire. Fantastic episode of the X-Files. I think we're 2 episodes away from the series finale here. So next week, we're going to be talking episode 23 of season 3, which is called Wet Wired. So hit that like and subscribe. Join us next Friday for another episode of eXhuming the X-Files. Until then, we'll see you.